Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are so excited for you to join us this afternoon. My name is Veronica. This is Minnie. She joins us on every single Fun with Friends program. We are happy that you are able to join us this afternoon. I'm just going to go over a few quick housekeeping items, and then we will get started. First, the chat room is open, and it will be open throughout the whole program. So if you have any questions for Kenneth Oppel, or if you're having any technical problems, please do use the chat room, and I will help you out as fast as I can. I know certain devices have certain functions and features. You can also use the Q&A, and I will help you out there as well. For those who are watching on YouTube, you can use the chat room, and I will bring the questions over to Zoom. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Lorraine, who is going to be leading today's discussion.
Hey, everyone.
If you're from the area, you probably recognize Lorraine. She works at our Queen Square location, and I know she also does lots of school visits. So it's going to be a fabulous conversation today, and I will pop back up to help with the questions from the audience. All right, good luck.
All right, welcome everyone, and welcome Kenneth. I'm just going to read a bio that I found on Kenneth's website, just so you can get to know a little bit more about him before we start our interview, and then you'll hear lots of exciting things, I'm sure. So Kenneth is the author of numerous books for young readers, and his award-winning Silverwing trilogy, which we do have here. You can sign them out from any ID Exchange location. Has sold over 1 million copies worldwide, and has also been adapted into an animated TV series and stage play. Airborne won the Governor General's Literary Award, and also won the Michael L. Prince Honor Book Award. Kenneth is the author of Half Brother, which won both the Canadian Library Association's Book of the Year and Children Award, as well as the CLA Young Adult Book Award. So that's the first time that award in the awards history that the same title has won both honors. This dark endeavor, Wicked Intent, The Boundless, and The Nest, which won the CAL Book of the Year for Children Award. So wow, that's a lot of awards and a lot of books. So yeah, Kenneth, can you let us know how many books you've written in total then?
I am losing track a little bit. I think it's 34, 35.
Wow.
Including the one I just finished. It's not out yet. So something around that ballpark.
That's a lot of books and a lot of awards.
I have been at this a while, since, 25, 30 years. So a book a year, let's say a book a year.
Wow, that's amazing. Average. So when did you actually write your first book then, and what was it?
Oh, the first book was written over 2 summer holidays when I was 14 and 15. And it was a book about a kid who was addicted to playing video games based on my own addiction to the Atari Asteroids game.
Whoa, you're aging yourself there.
I know, it's very old. They look like refrigerators, the games I played. But that book became my first published book, Colin's Fantastic Video Adventure by me, Kenneth Oppel. It's just a thin little book. Look, it's not very thick, but it got published in England by Puffin Books. There's the Puffin. I was pretty excited because I'd grown up with Puffin Books. So I had a Puffin book. And it was like a huge lucky break for me because I'd wanted to be a writer since 13. So I had been writing on my own fan fiction, basically, like, Star Wars fan fiction and Dungeons and Dragons fan fiction. And then essentially video game fan fiction. So I just wrote about whatever I was most excited about. It was not a chore for me. I liked doing it.
Right. So how did you go about getting that first book published then? Like, do you have to call someone, or how does that process even work?
I had a huge lucky break. So my father at that time had a colleague who knew the very famous children's author Roald Dahl in England. Oh. They were childhood chums. And this colleague of my father's knew I was an aspiring writer and I'd written this video game story, and it was beautifully typed up, 100 pages, beautifully typed. And this colleague was going to visit Roald Dahl in England, and he offered to take my story, my video game story, and show it to Roald Dahl. I didn't know if it was really going to happen. I didn't know if Roald Dahl would even have the time or inclination to look at something a little upstart from Victoria, BC had written, but he did, and he showed it to his editor, and they liked it, and they offered to publish it. So I had a huge lucky break with Roald Dahl.
That's amazing. So when did you really know that you first wanted to be an author? You mentioned that like the first book, or you worked on it between 14 and 15.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you started, like, what age were you when you started writing or wanting to be an author?
I liked writing in school, in elementary school. I liked it. I sort of took it outside the classroom, when I was maybe 10 or 11. And it would just be, I'd always have a story on the go, just at home, summer holidays, Christmas holidays. As I said, essentially fan fiction. It didn't have that name then. I was just, writing stories like the ones that I found most exciting. And that meant spaceships and laser guns and orcs and goblins and dragons, as many as I could cram in to any story. But I wrote stories, and I'd send them out to magazines, and they always got rejected and sent back, sometimes with encouraging little notes. But that book was the very first thing of mine to see print.
So I really like your perseverance then, if you kept sending them out and, even though you were getting rejected, you kept going. So.
Well, I had a good role model in Emily of New Moon, Alan Montgomery's heroine, because she did the same thing. Like she would send her poems and her short stories off to magazines and newspapers, and mostly they just came back in the mail. And then there was that day, when she got a very thin letter, which was just an acceptance letter with a check or something. And that was it. She got published. So that was like a beacon of hope for me. One day I'd get that acceptance letter.
Right. So there you go, everyone. Never give up.
It's true.
Yeah, it is true. In everything in life, really. Yeah. So what do you like to do when you're not writing books?
If I said reading, is that a surprise to anyone? I love movies. I've loved movies from childhood on. I see a lot of movies. I like walking. I like swimming. I like traveling. I'm looking forward to one day being able to travel again, anxiety free. I like spending time with my family and friends. I like drinking wine, pretty run of the day things.
Yeah, pretty normal people things.
The normal person.
A normal person. And you mentioned that you were in Victoria. Is that where you were born, and is that where you grew up? Or
I was actually born in Port Alberni, which is a little town just up island from Victoria. So I spent the first, I think, 4 or 5 years of my life there, and then we moved to Victoria. And then I sort of bounced from coast to coast. During my childhood, my dad went to law school at Dalhousie in Halifax, so we moved out east for 4 years, and then bounced back to Victoria. And then when I was done high school, I went to U of T and stuck right here in the middle of our lovely country.
Excellent. Kind of. So you're in Toronto then?
I'm still in Toronto. Yeah, we had a few years. I lived in England for 3 years when my wife was doing her PhD at Oxford, and then in Newfoundland for 2 years and Dublin for a year, but mostly here in Toronto.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've done quite a bit of traveling, and it's neat that you've lived in different places in Canada. Which would you say is your favorite?
Oh, I can't pick. I love so many places in Canada, though. I mean, the West Coast will always, have this sort of pull on me because it was the place of my birth and childhood. And the scenery is, spectacular. But I loved Halifax. I love the history and the maritime flavor. Newfoundland was fascinating too. And Toronto is a great city. I really, it's been fascinating to live here for so many years and to see how it's changed. And I think in many ways gotten more interesting, especially the waterfront. And I've traveled, on book tours and stuff all across Canada. And every place I visit has something very cool about it and interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned earlier that in your spare time, one of the things you like to do is read. Who's your favorite author? And you can't say you.
I wouldn't anyway.
Besides you.
I would never. I don't know, it depends what audience you're talking about. I mean, I could go all the way back to like picture books and say people like Shirley Hughes or Dr. Seuss or Barbara Reed, and move up from there, and talk about Roald Dahl, obviously, and then Kip Pearson, Art Slade, Tim Wynne Jones. I mean, it depends the age group you're interested in, and then once readers get to the age of sort of 12 and 13, their reading explodes outwards into the great big world of all books. So there's lots of writers I enjoy, like Jonathan Franzen or Elena Ferrante or Barbara Kingsolver, Ian McEwan. I read all over the place.
Yeah. Well, there's so many amazing authors out there, including yourself. So I recently read this book, Bloom, which was awesome. Where did you get your inspiration for this? It's a trilogy. That's
It
correct,
is.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. So do you want to tell us about your inspiration on that?
Sure. Two places, really. The first was a single sentence that popped into my head one day, which went like this: there was a dead patch in the garden where nothing grew. I liked that sentence because right away it just triggered more questions in my head about why didn't anything grow there? What was so special about the dead patch? Why was it a dead patch? Is it cursed, toxic, something buried underground waiting? And then I thought, well, what if one day something did start to grow in that dead patch? What would it be? So I thought these were pretty interesting ideas, and I wrote them down in my handy dandy low-tech ideas notebook. I filled dozens of these over the years, and nothing really happened. I didn't really know what kind of story those few thoughts might become until a couple of years later, when my eldest daughter had a terrible nightmare and was kind enough to share it with me. And it was a doozy. She's outside and it begins to rain, and she realizes they're not raindrops, they're tiny little eggs that proceed to hatch and release terrible, creepy, crawly insects all around her feet. She runs for cover. She sees a bridge up ahead. She goes under the bridge only to find the biggest egg of all that's hatching, releasing the biggest creepy, crawly thing of all that's eating another person. So when she told me that, I thought, I love this. Where has this nightmare been all my life? So I had to have it. And I smushed it together with that sentence: dead patch, garden, nothing grew, and imagined what might start growing out of that dead patch. So I didn't use the little eggs right away. That came in the second book called Hatch. But that idea inspired not just one, but three books. So in the first book, I imagined a big rainfall that brings seeds, and imagine all the fun, carnivorous, murderous plants that might grow from those seeds. That's where it came from.
That's where it came from.
Now you know. Yeah.
So the second one then is Hatch. Is that right?
That's it. Oh, you've got it there too.
Yeah, I got. And then this one.
That's it. Thrive. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Thrive? What's going to happen there?
Well, I mean, I conceived the trilogy in a way that would introduce the readers to weird plants. And then in the second book, weird hatchlings. And in the third book, the readers would get to meet who is responsible for sending all these terrible things down on our planet. So I think that's all I really need to say about the third one. It's very neatly delineated. It was really just, it wrote itself. It didn't actually. It was really hard to write, but it seemed like such a neat, easy idea at the time.
Well, I certainly can't wait to get to these two now. Now, so is Thrive the most recent book that you've written then, or?
The most recent to be published. I just finished a book that's coming out next September called Ghostlight. Surprise, it's a ghost story. And it's centered around the Gibraltar Lighthouse on the Toronto Islands. So there's a very real Toronto setting for this new book. Something I've wanted to do for a long time, write about the city and its history. And a ghost story seemed like the perfect way to do it.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. Can't wait for that one to be published. How do you feel about having a little speed round of questions? I'm gonna ask you.
Have I not been speedy enough for you? Do I need to be speedier? Yes, go ahead.
Just some really quick ones
Yeah.
that you don't have to go into much detail on. Do you have any pets?
No, my kids did, but the pet owners have moved out and taken their pets with them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So cats or dogs?
Oh, dogs all the way.
Dogs, okay. So you mentioned your children. How many?
3.
3?
Mm-hmm.
And they're all moved out of the house now, you said?
No, just the older 2.
Oh, just the older
Still have
2.
one at home. Yeah.
Oh, okay, nice. Favorite pizza topping?
Green olives.
What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Mocha.
Ooh, okay. And just, are you doing anything special for the holidays?
Holidays. No, I will be here with my immediate family. Yeah, nothing special.
Nothing special. Okay. So there are a couple questions here in the chat. So I think I'll let Veronica ask those. There she is. Hello. Ask those.
Hi. Yes. So there are some in the chat, and I've got some people have private messaged me them. So are you ready? Are you ready for the
I'm ready. Yeah.
You're ready? Okay. So what is your favorite book that you have written? I know that's hard.
Ooh, well, if I'm only allowed one, I always usually go for Airborne, just because I really fell in love with the world, sort of this alternate history where airplanes have never been invented and everyone travels around on these essentially floating Titanics, these vast, luxurious airships. There's air pirates and weird stuff in the sky and ghost airships and shipwrecks. And I really like the characters. I mean, I get attached to most of my characters, but the characters in Airborne really stayed with me longer than usual. Matt and Kate. And I think Kate DeVries is probably my most vivid character, my most successful character. So that's another reason why I pick Airborne.
Which answers the other question, the follow-up question, which was what is your favorite character that you've written? So it's like you knew that I was going to ask that.
I know. I'm so good at this. Kate DeVries. But there are other favorite characters in other of my books, and they tend to be the villains, like Goth in the Silverwing books, or the Wasp Queen in The Nest. Loved writing the Wasp Queen scenes. It was a treat. I know there's something about those villains. It's just you get to channel this different part of yourself, and yeah, it's fun.
There is. I love a good villain in a book. And they are often the characters that I will remember the most.
Yeah.
And they will make me angry, so angry that I will throw that book somewhere.
How satisfying.
It is. It's just great. So we have a question.
Yes.
So my students would like to know if your parents supported you when you decided to become a writer.
Yes, they did. They always took my writing seriously. They read my work. They commented on the work. I think they were proud of my dedication and single-mindedness. I think there might have been a few wobbles there as they wondered, like, how is he going to eat? Will he make money at this? Which are reasonable enough questions. But I was pretty good at, taking part-time jobs and doing what I needed to do to pay my rent. But no, I think I was very fortunate because I think that kind of encouragement and support, and I got it from teachers too, like some English teachers, is really critical because it's an atypical thing still to try and pursue. It's not a secure living. It's a very risky sort of endeavor. So I think if you have supportive people around you, you're lucky.
That's amazing. It is. The more events I do with authors, the more I've realized it's a tough industry to get into. And it's a lot of work to get that first book published.
Yes.
And it takes years and years to do that. So we are so glad that you were able to get your books out there because
Thank you.
they're just fabulous to read. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this. Kenobi would like to know, do you still like to play video games?
Oh, not really. They've gotten too complicated for me. There's too many buttons, Kenobi. There's just too many buttons, and I don't really know what to do with them. Terrible. I remember playing one of these Call of Duty games, I think, with my son. And I think that's the one that has that wonderful playback feature, so that when you've finally been, destroyed by your competitors, there'll be a video replay showing you. And mostly I seem to be staring at my toes or looking up into the sky. I don't know why. I mean, I just found it impossible to move and orient myself. So they're too complicated. Also, even if I spent the time, I'm worried I'd get addicted to them and it would destroy my work habits and I'd never write again. So multiple reasons.
I do miss the simplicity of Pac-Man.
I liked having a joystick and one or two buttons, maybe two. That was good for me.
I just can't do VR because that just makes me dizzy.
Never tried the VR game. That's a whole other temptation I'm willing to avoid.
So for your series, Bloom, did you have to do any research?
Quite a bit. Whatever book I'm starting, I like to do a lot of research because it gives me ideas. It's not just a question of getting my facts right. It's a gift because I will learn things that never would have occurred to me. Might send the story off on different directions that are a surprise. So in the case of Bloom, I have a friend who's a botanist, and he told me all sorts of interesting things about earth plants, how they wage chemical warfare on each other, how they communicate through fungal networks. I mean, he told me a lot of interesting stuff. And I also learned about earth plants that, were toxic, that were fast growing, that were invasive, that were carnivorous. So there's lots of material to draw from here on Earth and be inspired by. So I often say, even though I like to think I have a good imagination, sometimes, the real stuff, the stuff here on Earth is way more fantastical than what I could dream up.
One of the questions I always like to ask authors is, what is the weirdest thing you had to Google for your book?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I mean, Google is great, and the internet in general, because you get the answers to all sorts of very obscure, very specific things. I mean, I can't give you any one amazing example, but just you could find out the kind of wall coverings and fabrics that would have been on, a Pullman first class train compartment in 1890 in America, because there are people who are fascinated, obsessed with this kind of detail, who have kindly added a Wikipedia entry, and you can find out. I try and get credible information, so you've always got to be careful with what you research on the internet, but it is very good for obscure details that never would have made it into an Encyclopedia Britannica article from when I was growing up. When I was growing up, there was the encyclopedia, all its volumes, and other reference material, which was still book form, but you didn't have the agility, or it wasn't updated as easily as everything is now that it's digital.
Yes, that is a good kind of lesson for kids. Don't always trust everything that you find on Google, because it could be wrong.
And don't trust everything in my books. A lot of made up stuff in my books.
So we have a class here who would like to know, you said that you liked movies. What was the last movie you saw, and how long has it been since you've been in a movie theater?
Oh, well, I did go to a movie theater, I guess last month, to see the new James Bond movie. So that was a big outing, masked, and that was interesting. It was fun. The last movie I've seen, I think I rewatched, I don't know. I think I rewatched an old favorite. I think it was Midnight in Paris or something. This felt like a sort of a, cozy, fun movie.
I do miss going to movie theaters regularly since COVID. I miss the popcorn.
I don't miss the popcorn. No. I miss movie theaters sometimes. There was something really fun about, being in a packed theater and seeing a really satisfying movie. I don't go out as much anymore to the movies, just because it's so easy to see them at home now. Mm-hmm. I tend to save my outings for live theater, which I find, usually more sort of entertaining, nourishing, thought-provoking. Seeing a movie is a bit of a crapshoot.
It can be. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have another class asking us, how did it feel when you won the Governor General Literacy Award?
Oh, it felt great to win the Governor General's Award. It's for Canada, it's probably the most prestigious award. It's one of the oldest awards. You get to do fancy things. They take you to Ottawa, and they let my wife and 2 kids come, and I was picked up by a limo. I think my kids' respect for me was never greater than at the moment a stretch limo pulled up and we got inside and were taken to a fancy hotel, and there was black tie events, and I got to sit in question period in the Houses of Parliament, and there was a banquet. It was a lot of fun. So a lot of fuss is made of you, and it was great. The one other thing I'd add is that the Governor General's Award is chosen by grown-ups. So I kind of like the awards that are Reader's Choice Awards. And we have a lot of those in Canada where my actual readers get to choose the books. So those are kind of, in a way, even more sort of affirming and gratifying, because, you want the books to be sort of like, appreciated and even loved by the audience for whom they were intended. So I love those awards too.
We're actually almost out of time, so I'm going to,
Wow.
So if anybody else has any quick questions, you can put them in the chat, but I have a question for you, and that is, what are you currently reading for our kids in the audience, those young readers? Or what would you recommend that is out right now that they could read, that they probably would enjoy? If they liked your book, the trilogy.
If they like my books, well, okay, I don't know how new these books are, but if you like my books, I would suggest the following. Mortal Engines by Philip Reeve. Big giant cities on tank treads, mobile, to go and eat smaller cities. It's great. Golden Compass, Philip Pullman's first book in his Dark Materials. I would recommend Feed by M.T. Anderson, a great dystopian novel. I would recommend Awaken Dreaming by Kip Pearson, one of my favorite books. But it's a sort of ghost story, sort of domestic story. It's really terrific. I'd recommend Fabulous Zed Watson by Kevin Sylvester. That's a relatively new one. And Stand on the Sky by Erin Bow, but a girl who trains, is it hawks or eagles? I've forgotten. Birds of Prey. Amazing stories. So that was like 5 or 6. That wasn't bad.
That's a perfect list, and I have written them down. And I will send that list out to everybody who's watching, so that they could be fabulous Christmas presents.
Absolutely.
So the very last question from a class is, was there a moment in your life when you have ever wanted to give up on writing, and what helped you stay motivated?
Oh, I think during the course of writing any given book, I've wanted to give up or thought it's terrible. Why did I pursue this book? It's garbage. But every time I have those thoughts, so what keeps me going is remembering how excited I was by the idea and the brainstorming and just imagining and seeing this world sort of fill out around me in my head. And just the sheer fun of it and excitement of getting a new idea and seeing this whole landscape of your own creation sort of unfold before you. And trying to keep in mind that, writing a book is a long project and there are highs and lows, and perseverance is really, your friend, and trying to keep your momentum up. So those are the little things I tell myself when I get stuck.
Wonderful, wonderful advice. And that's the 30 minutes just goes just like that every time we talk to you. It's just so quick.
Wow.
So thank you, Kenneth, for joining us.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you, Lorraine, for doing a wonderful job.
Thank you, Kenneth. It was nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
And thank you to the audience, all the kids and teachers and parents that are out there watching right now. Thank you. We all hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful December and rest of 2021, and all the best in 2022. We can't wait, Kenneth, until your new book comes out. Does it come out next year? Do you know?
Next September. Yeah, not so long.
Not so long. The time goes by so fast now. it's going to be fall again and before we know it. So thank you, everybody, and stay safe. And I will send out that book list along with a couple other extra little tidbits for you.